afternoon. This webinar today is about Nolan Business Solutions eRequest and invoice approvals for Dynamics GP. I'm Colin Smith, and the Technical Director here at Nolan's. So I'm going to run you through some of the features of eRequest, but we're not going to spend too long on that. We're going to go straight into the software and look at it, work through an example from start to end, so you can see the features and how they fit together inside our module. So eRequest is a procurement system, an end-to-end procurement system that works multi-device and multi-browser. We've done this by using a responsive design within our web pages, so that whichever device you're on, whether you're on a mobile phone, whether you're on a tablet, whether you're on a laptop, or even on a big screen on a PC, the website will adapt to whichever screen it's got and give you that multi-device support. We've also got multi-browser, so whether you're using Windows IE or Chrome, Firefox, Safari on Apple devices, the website will work on all of those. So you're able to access the website from any device with any type of browser. And what we've also supplied is a smartphone approval. So even if you're not able to log on to the website, you're able to still approve requests via a smartphone, via email, if that comes into your phone. The idea behind all of that is to make it easily accessible for all members of your organization to access the website. eRequest is built for Dynamics GP. It only works with Dynamics GP, and it's built right to access right inside the core of Dynamics GP. So all the data that we'll be seeing within the system today, the suppliers, the items, the currencies, the addresses, those are all fed through from Dynamics GP. So think of it as eRequest sitting on top of the normal purchasing process inside GP. This even goes down to how it calculates the taxes, how it does commitments, and if you're working with things like project accounting, what projects, cost categories, etc. are being used. So eRequest has a number of modules, and one of them is real-time commitment accounting. So we're able to look at budgets inside Dynamics at account level and show those to the users on the screen. So as you're putting on your request, it will look at the budget and it'll tell you if you're over budget, if you're over committed on that account. If you are, then it enables a set of workflow to manage that for you, whether that workflow is telling the system just warn that you're over budget, ignore the fact you're over budget, or perhaps stop you completely and go somewhere else for approval before you can put that request on. The system also works with 2- and 3-way matching, so you can match invoices to purchase orders, or you can put in a third document where you match a goods receipt to the purchase order, and later you can match the invoice to the receipt. The purchase order and the receivings can all be done via the front end, via the website. The invoices, they're done inside Dynamics by the AP team. Dynamics GP has a module called Revenue Expense Deferral. Inside there, you're able to create a prepayments account, and as you're putting on an invoice, you can say this invoice the cost needs to be spread over the next 12 months. So we work with that inside our eRequest module, and we integrate to that. So inside eRequest, you can say this is a prepayment type invoice, and it needs to be deferred over a set number of months. As the invoice goes onto Dynamics, it'll bring that through and automatically do that deferral for you. We also integrate with the standard Dynamics Fixed Assets module, through either allowing you to use the fixed asset clearing account, or through user defines being able to tick the capital asset box on the purchase order. I mentioned before we integrate with project accounting, so you can put on requests which become purchase orders and project accounting. And as the goods are received and invoiced, those costs go through into project accounting so that you can bill those out, do rebilling, or you can just track those costs against standard billing within the system. We integrate with analytic accounting, so should you have analytic accounting set on and have dimensions and codes set up against your accounts, eRequest will allow you to fill those dimensions and codes in as well. Here at Nolan Business Solutions, we have a module called Advanced VAT. Generally, this is used for not-for-profit or professional organizations where we're able to set up the system to say that certain cost centers or certain types of spend have different recovery methods as far as their VAT's concerned. And eRequest knows about this and is able to work with those kind of recoveries when it becomes a purchase order within Advanced VAT. When we're talking about invoice approvals, which we will do a little bit later, the users that approve invoices quite often like to see the actual invoice itself or a scanned image of that actual invoice. So we have a number of mechanisms that allow you to scan in invoices and be able to see those invoices, those scanned copies within Dynamics and also within our invoice approval module. Then at the bottom there's a final module which talks about internal stock requisitions. So most often companies will purchase goods from a supplier and the goods will come into the organization. Some organizations we deal with, they have a internal stock facility where the internal stock facility buys from the supplier and then internal requisitioners requisition from that internal stock facility. We have the facility to do that also inside eRequest. So let's have a look at what we're going to look at in the product today. So the whole purchase to pay process starts with a request. That request is put onto the system and it goes for approval, and quite often at that stage through commitment check as well. So either the requester or the approver checks to see whether that purchase is within the budgeted values for this particular year or year to date. All that's done within eRequest, and you can see that eRequest arrow going across the screen there. Once a request is approved, it becomes a purchase order, and you'll see there's another arrow there that says that purchase order is not only in eRequest, but it's also in Dynamics GP purchase order processing. This is unlike a lot of procurement systems that are out there on the market, that we actually write the purchase order at that point to Dynamics GP, and I feel that's important because you're able to see that purchase order inside your ERP system. You're able to track those purchase orders against your supplier and be able to see all those transactions inside ERP. It's not sitting outside in another system that you have no view of. With the purchase out with the supplier will deliver the goods, and within eRequest you can put in the goods receipt, or you can also put it into Dynamics GP. The system, eRequest, will recognize it if it's in GP, and GP will recognize it if it's been put into eRequest. And that's an optional step if you're using three-way matching. When you put the purchase invoice in, that purchase invoice will match to that goods receipt, or if it's two-way matched directly to the purchase order. Generally, if you put a request on, it's become a purchase order, it's been goods received, and you've got an invoice on and the invoice matches the PO, that invoice can go straight through for payment. However, we've got a number of companies that require that purchase invoice to go around a second loop of purchase invoice approval. Or it might be that that purchase invoice is slightly different to the purchase order. The costs supplied by the supplier are different, in which case that could be a good reason also for going through the purchase invoice approval. So we have a rules-based system there where you can define your own rules to say which purchase invoices under what criteria they should go through into purchase invoice proposal. Once that invoice is approved, online again through the website by the approver, then that invoice can be either posted or it can be posted, paid on the payment proposal. So what we're going to go through today is a little example of this, where I'm going to put on a request on behalf of Lucy, Lucy's in our sales and marketing team. Lucy's been asked to book a venue for a event we're doing. She'll put that through, she'll get it approved by her line manager, who's Mark, become a purchase order. Once the event has taken place, we're going to put it on a goods receipt to say yes, we've consumed that service, and we'll put a purchase invoice on, watch that go through purchase invoice approval. So let's get into the products and take a look. Right, so I'm logged into eRequest here as Lucy Vosser, and any of you that use eRequest up to version 2.51 will notice straight away that the screen is different, and we've recently done a major rewrite of the product, so that's changed all the look and feel of it. Underneath the skin, the database and the processes are the same, so that it helps us make your life easier with upgrades. But the look and feel of the products changed dramatically. One of the reasons for doing that was so that we could make this responsive design. For example, this is running on my machine here in the office in Fleet. If I was running that on my mobile phone, the screen might look something like this. So you'll see what it's done is it's moved all those boxes beneath each other and hidden away the menu bar there. So if I was running that on my laptop, it would look something, on my tablet, it would look something like that as well. So it'll respond to the type of screen you're using. I'm using Microsoft IE here today on my laptop. There's a number of other features, and I'll just point those out briefly as we go through them. Lucy, like I said, she's working in sales and marketing, so she's filtered her request forms here to marketing events. However, she also puts on requests for support services, internal stock, ground facilities. So she's able to select which requests she can see at which point. So by saying show all, the system will allow her to see all her requests that are hers to action, requests where she's waiting for others to action, and here requests that have been recently completed that she might want to select and duplicate if she's doing a regular type of purchase process. Okay, so Lucy logs in, and we've asked her to order a venue for our upcoming event. So Lucy can click on New Request and select Marketing Events as her request form. By selecting a request form, a form defines to the system what we're buying, who we're buying it from, what accounts to use, and also the layout of the form. So we can design forms specifically around the type of purchase. If you're buying things like this, marketing events, you'll need certain information and you'll be buying certain things related to that event, which will be completely different to if you're purchasing IT equipment. So that way forms are able to differentiate between these and provide a different experience to the different users. So we've got request number 91 here, created today by Lucy Vosser in the Sales and Marketing PO entry team. The delivery address as defaulted to Nolan, which is the address code inside my Dynamics GP. And if I click on the hyperlink here, you can see it's actually our US address where we're going to have, because this event is going to be in the US. Down at the bottom, we've got a comment, an internal note, and I've also put some extra notes in here. So, so I can put in here Customer Day 2017. Internal note, please make sure that this address is on the invites. Just going to spell check that and make it right. And any extra notes that are needed around sales and marketing. So let's go and add a line. I'll do that by clicking on the Add Line button. I've taken a number of fields off this window because this is just here for marketing events. But if it was for stock events, things like units of measure, stock items, things like units of measure, location code, those kind of details which go with stock type items could be available on this screen just through the screen designer. Because they're not relevant to Lucy, I've taken them off. So item numbers, I can press the lookup button here and I can see here are 5 items that Lucy would normally order related to an event. So there's venues, accommodations, some promotional gifts maybe, some scenery or banners that we need, as well as some of our events we need to order inline stands and insurance around the participants. Today we're just going to order a venue and accommodation. For those of you that know GP, what I've done here is I've actually told this form to restrict what items we can buy based on the class of goods within Dynamics GP. So I've said any item within class events, those are what Lucy can select to purchase from. That way you can segregate your what you can buy by form. So I'm going to select venues and accommodation here, and the item description is the main hall in the downtown conference center. Okay, the supplier. If I press the lookup button again, what eRequest does at this point is I've got a tick box up here saying it's linked suppliers only. So it's only going to look at the suppliers from whom I've bought venues and accommodation from before. Using this, the system's able to learn who your normal suppliers are for certain items, and it gives them to you on your front screen. So you can go and select them straight away. If I untick that box, you'll see here that I've got all suppliers on my Fabricam Inc. Test system. So I can go and select that whichever supplier I wanted to supply this from. But by having the link suppliers on the first page you get to, 9 times out of 10 it should be that supplier that you need to select. So I'm just going to select Bloomington here. The Bloomington County is the company that looks after the bookings on the conference center. The account number is interesting in that inside the setup I've got 3 segments here, and I've told the system default the first segment based on who is doing the purchasing. So it's Lucy within sales and management, sales and marketing in the events team. So therefore defaults 100 to the events team, which is in that account description there. 6310 being the nominal, I've told that to default from the what I'm buying. So it combines those segments together and tells me that the account I need to use is the events, venues, accommodation account. In some cases with some customers we actually hide that account number completely if it's not relevant to the users. We're going to want 1, and we're going to pay £2,000 for the use of this main hall. You'll see here that the system's calculated the VAT. I click onto it. You'll see that we've got a tax detail ID, tax detail description, taxable purchases and a tax amount. Those are the fields, if those of you that know Dynamics GP will recognize that terminology. So the system's gone and worked out based on the GP tax engine. So we require this. We're going to say we're going to have the event on Friday the 22nd, and comment, we're going to say here, we're going to configure for 500 attendees, please. Okay. Over on the left-hand side, is this a prepayment purchase, and if so, how many periods? This is not a prepayment. We're just going to be using it once. If it was, I could just tick those, and the system would interface seamlessly with your revenue expense deferrals. Down at the bottom here, I've got my budget commitment area. So we can see that I've got an annual budget for venues of 150,000. So far this year to date, I've spent 27,000. I've used up but not been invoiced for 45,000. I've got 14,000 on order, and I've got 19,000 in transferred requests. If I add up all those commitments, it gives me 106,000, which tells me I've got 29% of my budget remaining. So that's okay. I'm free to go and book that venue. At the bottom, I've just created some user-defined fields. This can be whatever you want, but I'm going to put customer day, and it was signed off today. Okay, so I'm going to save that request, and that goes onto the line. We've got a feature here of Excel paste, where if you have your request in an Excel spreadsheet, all you need inside the spreadsheet is these headings. You don't need all of them. You just need an item description, supplier quantity if you want to, price. And the system will be able to copy it out of Excel and hit the Excel paste and bring it in, similar to the GP general ledger paste function. And that's really handy for being able to get those kind of requests into the system. So one more thing before Lucy submits it to Mark for approval is that she can go through and put attachments onto the system. So if she's got something like an attendee list, she can go and browse that attendee list and attach it into the request. So we're all good to go, and Lucy can press the submit button, and it says to her, right, so the default person that you submit this request to is Mark Hennessy, who is the line manager for sales and marketing here at Nolan's. I've also put myself on the list here of someone, if Mark wasn't in, if Lucy received his out of office, she could optionally send it to me. So, but this, we know Mark's in the office, so I'm just going to submit it to him for approval. And it comes back and tells Lucy your request was submitted for approval. And it sends Mark an email. So Mark will receive an email saying that there's a request on the system for his approval. Now either if Mark's not in the office, if he can't get to a browser, he can always just click the approve button on that email. And if it comes through, I'll show that to you a bit later. What I'll do in the meantime is I'll just log out and I'll log in as Mark. Okay, and now we see Mark has request to action, event number 91. Here it is, here's Mark's email. So I'm just going to click on that to show it to you. So it's event number 91. Lucy Vosser over here on the right hand side is ordering venues and accommodation for the main hall at Downtown Conference Centre from Bloomington County for the value of £2,000 with VAT. And that's where Mark would click the approve button to approve it. Okay, but Mark's in here already, so I'm just going to click on the request. Mark can look at all the details on the request. You can drill into the line. You can go down here, you can have a look at the budget commitments, and those budget commitments are live. So if somebody else has come in the meantime and put on another request, it'll get added into the value of untransferred requests to reduce the amount remaining. So Mark can check at the time of approval that is still all valid. Yes, it is. He can look at the attachments if he wants to, but when he's ready, he can approve this request. So we're just going to go through and approve it. The request was approved, and that will send an email back to Lucy to say it was approved. What we can also see here is it's got a purchase order number 68, which is inside Dynamics GP. So if we have a quick look at Dynamics GP and we go into inquiries, purchase order documents, it's going to have a look at purchase order number 68. There it is. There it is sitting inside Dynamics. It's one at 2000. If I drill down a bit more detail, you can see it's the main hall and downtown conference center. It's requested by Lucy Vosser. There's Lucy's email coming in, by the way, where it's telling her that it was approved. We can see even the comments over here to say that it's to be laid out for 500 attendees. And on the header, we also have header comments where we're saying this is for customer day 2017. Okay, so the PO is now sitting in GP. We've got to get that PO to the supplier. So either, if I go back into eRequest, either Mark can do that from here, or if we go back in, we log out and log in as Lucy. Lucy's able to look at her recently completed requests, number 91 there. She can see the purchase order by clicking on the purchase order link. We're able to see this purchase order, just make it a bit bigger so we can see it. It's purchase order going to Rachel Baxter at Bloomington, shipping to our US address and billing actually to our UK address. It's for the main hall, configured for 500 attendees, please, related to our customer day 2017. So this is just an example of a purchase order that we put together, but we can configure the system to create purchase orders in the way that you need them. We can also see actually on the purchase order who's requested, who's approved it. So all Lucy needs to do is click on the email supplier and it'll email this PDF to your supplier. So we have the event, it's a great success, and Lucy needs to come in now and tell the system that that event has happened. So down here under Receive PO, Lucy can go in here, and Lucy now has a screen where she can see all the requests she's put on the system, all the purchase orders that haven't yet been received. Quantity that she ordered is here. So this was our request, number 91. She can say she's received that, and she got a notification number 89765. So we're clicking the Receive button. What that does is it creates a receipt inside Dynamics GP. So this is, we're talking about three-way matching here. And if we go back into our GP system and refresh our inquiry, we can see there's our shipment come through. So this shipment here, if we go into the receipt, is in a batch called eRequest. You'll see that the distributions on here is posting to our purchase invoice, our purchase account, and to our accrual account here. That's our goods received, not invoiced. So all we have to do as far as the system's concerned here is go into that batch and post it. So that will then update our journals. Okay, so there's our receipt posted now. Okay, so when the invoice comes in from the supplier, Purchase Ledger will get the invoice and go into Enter Match Invoices here. You can put the invoice number here, so this is Bloomington invoice, I'm going to say it's 0709. Put into a batch, CS 0709, which is the batch for today. The supplier is Bloomington, and it's matching to our purchase order number here, 68. There's my invoice now on the system, matched to the shipment that was through. So I don't know how many keystrokes that was, probably about 7 keystrokes for the registration of the invoice. If I've got the invoice in beside me, what I can do is print out a barcode from the system here. This barcode with RCT 0109 on it. If I was printing that out to a small label printer attached to my PC here, I could then stick that barcode on the invoice, enabling me to scan that through a scanner that looks at barcodes and save it into a location that I can then go to and look at. So I've got the ability here also, if I've now scanned it into our location, I can then go and view the scanned image. And although this is not a Bloomington invoice, it illustrates that that's me pulling up a scanned invoice on the system. So I put my invoice on, I've scanned it. The invoice itself, what I'm going to do here, just to illustrate the invoice approvals part of the system, is I'm going to say that they've charged us £2,100 on the invoice. Great Plains takes over and says the unit cost of the invoice is different from the cost of the shipment it's matched to. Is this correct? Yes, it is. And we'll see what happens now inside the distributions is that it's going to post the extra £100 off to my purchase account, the venues and accommodation account. eRequest invoice approvals has a rule built into it to say if it's department 100 and there's a value going to there, then I would like you please to send the invoice for invoice approval to Pam Taylor for approval. So there it is. Pam's going to need to approve this invoice before it's posted. If I try to post at this point, it will give me an error, so I'm just going to save it into my batch. And I'm going to, at this point, Pam would get an email. These are batched up emails, so she might get an email maybe twice a day telling her there's invoices on the system for her approval, giving her a link so Pam can log into eRequest. Pam can go to invoice approvals, and here she can see a list of approvals that she needs to authorize. So here's our purchase order number 68. We can go and take a look at it. It's Bloomington invoice 0709. The amount on the invoice is 2,100, and it's posting a variance of £100 across here to the events account. Pam can go in and view the invoice from here. Pops up my Rockton invoice again. She can take a look at the purchase order details. So she can see here the purchase order, what it was for, what account it was posted to, etc. And we can put notes against it. So Pam could add a note and say, this is okay, extra people arrived. That note is now put onto this invoice. And if Pam's happy, she can go through and press the approve button. If that £100 is extra and she didn't like it, we can always reject that invoice. But in this case, I'm just going to put through the approval. And it tells us the invoice approval has been completed. Disappears from her list. However, Pam can always go back and have a look at her approved list, and she can see all the invoices that she has approved or rejected in the past. Okay. Back in GP then, if we just go back into our invoice, here's our invoice, and a couple of things have happened to it. In eRequest approvals, it's now showing us the status approved. In the notes against the invoice, we can see that at 15:35, Pam said that was okay, gave us a reason why it was okay, and then shortly after went and approved it. And what it's also done is it's moved it into a batch called CSO709_APPR. That's again configurable. You can set up your own terminology around the batch IDs, but it does mean that if I'm working in the purchase ledger department, I just need to go in, look for all my batches with APPR at the end of it, so as a suffix or a prefix, and I can post those invoices because they have been approved. Now that invoice is posted, it's able to go on the payment proposal run. So just one final thing that I can show you here if I just log back in as Lucy. So going back to our request 91 to wrap it all up completely. We put a request on and we saw it go to purchase order. That particular line then went off on receipt 108, and when we put the receipt on, we put on a goods reference of 98765. What we can also see is that the invoice came in, the supplier's invoice number was BL07091, and at the moment that invoice is unpaid. I suppose the final thing, if I had a bit more time this afternoon, I could show you paying that invoice, and that paid status goes to paid. And if Lucy wants to have a look at the invoice, again, click on the button and she can see the invoice. So that's been a short run through of Dynamics, of eRequest invoice approvals for Dynamics GP, showing some of the new features and the new design of the website. I hope it's been useful for you, even those users that currently use eRequest and maybe use an older version. I hope that having seen the new version, you can see the advantage, the improvements were made to the interface. And if anybody's got any questions or would like to contact us about how to upgrade or how to buy it, how to implement it, please feel free to do so. So thank you very much for your time this afternoon.